I have numerous experience when the candidates just write in a letter saying something that is totally irrelevant.
Such as
They say, well, we know that you're renowned for doing IPOs, meaning initial public offerings, to which my response is, yes, I do intellectual property only. IPO, that's my IPO, initial IPO. I have one general counsel of one of the world's largest owner of luxury brands. She once told me, she says, whenever I see an incoming lengthy email, I just lose my will to survive.
you have been practicing for more than 30 years. Do you or your firm have any corporate motto?
Indeed, we do. My previous senior partner retired from the firm in 2009. I took over management then. So we need to come up with a new website. So we thought about a new motto. And so you can find from our website, it's actually the three words that is professional, proactive, and pragmatic. So these are values that we hold very dearly onto over the years. Let's start with professional. Professional is something that I, as I say, hold very dearly to. It entails a very high level work ethics, and one needs to have a very strong aspiration for excellence. And of course, with professionalism comes reputation. So it's a no-brainer that we adopt professional as one of the three words, keywords. Then comes proactive. In our course of our practice, we come to reckon that clients always expect you to go well beyond their mandate to make a recommendation that suits their needs. So they do expect you to give the suggestion. So I think it's another no-brainer that we must say, well, we have to be proactive. Finally, on pragmatic. We just need to be able to provide advice that is executable, the client finds useful. There's no point telling client that in an ideal world, this is what I say you would do. That doesn't help client at all. So we have to be pragmatic as well. Apart from that, in our practice, we also emphasize very strongly that whatever we do, it has to be proportional to the cost that we are going to incur, so that it's money's worth. So that's another thing. And of all things, there's one thing that I like to say that no clients would dare to admit is that they expect you to be prophetic as well. Obviously, we are not gods, whatever. We can't predict what the future holds. But that doesn't inhibit clients from having such an expectation, particularly in litigation when they expect you to hold their hands on each and every step of the proceedings and be able to, in a way, prophesize what's going to happen next. So we just have to always strive to be perfect. Yet another P. So you've heard me mentioning a lot about the letter P: professional, proactive, pragmatic, proportional, prophetic. We just need to be perfect. We need to have these virtues. We don't want clients to find us perfect.
I know you have a lot of celebrity luxury brand clients. So how do you impress or to keep your clients?
I think the first thing is KYC, know your client. To us as practicing lawyer, everyone knows it is an anti-money laundering protocol that one must adopt whenever one takes on a new client. We have to find out who the client is, who are the directors, who can have the authority to give instructions, and who owns the business, etc. But this is not the context I'm referring to. What I'm referring to is just have to know how client works and what their businesses are. And to find this out, everything under the sun that is available on the World Wide Web, it's something you expect to find out already. If client is a listed company, all the more reasons. Everything is on there. Interim report, annual report, and whatever. So it's all there. And then apart from KYC, I think the next thing is empathy. This is easier said than done. You just have to understand clients. Not that we expect you to be telepathic, which is very, very important, of course. You need some super skills to do that. But you just have to be able to understand client clearly. I have one American well-known trademark owner whose general counsel came to me seeking my advice on an employee-employer arrangement. Actually, it's a consultancy principal arrangement. So they say, well, Anthony, tell me about this. We have an ongoing consultancy arrangement in Hong Kong. Is there any implications? Would we fall foul of the law and the court find it to be employee-employer relationship? We said, have a check. And my colleague came up with a 5-page, very erudite advice with all the legal authorities and everything else. And I can assure you that it's 100% correct. And I can also assure you that if this paper is placed in front of you, Professor, you would have given him distinction. The trouble is the advice. The advice says, one word to summarize it is apocalypse. So it's Mayday, Mayday, okay, you're in deep trouble because the court is going to find it to be an employer-employee relationship. So I talked to my colleague and said, how is it going to help clients? By telling them of their plight, if you're not going to help them get them out of trouble. And then I said, and I gave a very welcoming advice to client. The client actually come back and say, well, Anthony, that's great advice. I say, suspend the work of your colleague until you have found a subsidiary company or a distributor in Hong Kong to hire this guy as an employee. Otherwise, you'll be in great trouble. So client implemented what I say, put him under the payroll of his subsidiary, and have all the documents put in place. So you just need to understand client. These day and age, we really have to be empathetic, try to understand client. With AI around the corners, always watching over our shoulders, you don't want to be overtaken by computers. So that's something that I believe that computer cannot overtake us, at least in the short term. And the next thing is the effective communication. Once again, you need to be able to say something the client can understand. Client doesn't care how bright you are or how academically accomplished you are. They don't understand what you say. So you need to give succinct advice, comprehensive. And remember, long is not beautiful. Trust me. I have one general counsel of one of the world's largest owner of luxury brands. She once told me, she says, whenever I see an incoming lengthy email, I just lose my will to survive. It's a bit dramatic, but that's true. So I think that's something that we have to be very watchful about.
So is there anything special about in-house clients?
I think, well, first of all, in most of these cases, they are using lawyers from could any time be more than 100 countries in the world. They are in touch with the best brains in the legal ecosystem. So you really have to be in your very best. So what they will look for is someone who has a very good understanding of clients, who's pragmatic, once again, who don't just recite the law, and they charge reasonably. And of course, the last thing is, if the circumstances should require, you would be able to come back with the advice in a very short time. I remember my principal, Robin Rich, once, he always liked to say this phrase. He says, well, just bust your guts out. So it shows, there are times you can't bust your guts every day, but there are times when the circumstances warrant it, then you just have to bust your guts. So in a way, in-house counsel just look for super lawyer with a business acumen. That's it. I mean, it sounds simple, but that's basically what it is.
So simple but not easy, I would say.
No, not the
So how
slightest.
about any advice for, say, students or fresh graduates? For example, how to do well in an interview? What would you be looking for?
Once again, it sounds cheesy, but it's once again KYC first. You have to know the firm that you are attending for an interview. I have numerous experience when the candidates just write in a letter saying something that is totally irrelevant.
Such as
They say, well, we know that you're renowned for doing IPOs, meaning initial public offerings, to which my response is, yes, I do intellectual property only. IPO, that's my IPO, initial IPO, okay? So, and there are also circumstances where they use the same template for all their application letters. And there are occasions when they've forgotten to change the name of the firm. And that happens as well, okay? So it's simple stuff, but that happens. So during an interview, you're expected to demonstrate your passion. Go in, people come to my firm for an interview saying they know I do a lot of intellectual properties. Oh, I just love intellectual property, so they put up a good show. But, when we put them to task to explain why they say they are passionate about IP, they lost for words. So these are some things that they can prepare themselves rather than leave it to us to cross-examine them. We don't mean to cross-examine them, but you say you're interested in this topic, tell us about it. So that's something that can be prepared in advance. Next thing is familiarize yourself with your own resume. I don't write it for you, you wrote it yourself. So there are people coming in saying, I've done a dissertation on this topic. Very well, tell us about it. Oh, and then they start to stutter, lost for words. Oh, it's been a while, so I can't really recall what I've written. Well, so I suppose I thought dissertation, you must have chosen a subject that you really like, and yet you say, well, so that's something to avoid. And then always tell a good story. I think that's the most important point. We need a concise, comprehensive, cohesive, clear, and compelling story so that you can leave a mark on the minds of the interviewers. You just have to ask yourself, what would they remind you about? I have cases where I simply write the word nondescript on an application after the interview, so that doesn't bode very well in the process. So I hope that helps.